Hi guys. So your question was how I got started into this profession, no?
How did you get started into it, and how did you kind of like decide to stick around?
I started with the still camera because initially I didn't really know much about moving cameras. So what happened was that I trained a little bit under this photographer called Pablo Bartolomeo, who was, uh, you know, a photojournalist really. So then I used to shoot a lot around the streets and different kind of social document projects, and understood how it felt to be really invisible. And then from there I kind of discovered that I kind of can do something in moving image, where it's interesting to use sound as well, as far as images are concerned, and one can focus on visual storytelling really. And then what was interesting is that there were not many film schools in India at that point. So I was trying to find different ways of trying to get an education in this department. So I started looking for scholarships and funding, and went to study in Australia, where I did something like experimental films and photography again, but printing and understanding the dark room, understanding how light kind of affects a negative, and then just being in different countries and traveling as much as possible in a very broke, cheap way. You don't need a lot of money to be able to see the world if you plan well. And then just that, and nothing went from one to another kind of step, and I got very lucky that my first feature film was a bunch of 30-year-olds, all of us who got together. I think we made a film for like under 50 lakhs as my first feature film. It's a Bengali feature film, black and white, called Cat Sticks, which Ronnie Sam, who's also from Silchar, he directed and wrote. And I shot, and the rest of the gang was from Calcutta, and then that kind of gave us a nice break because it was a little bit unusual. And it released the same year as something like Roma, which is also black and white.
I was just going to say that it's black and white.
So there was a little bit of love given to monochromatic films at that year. So, and then from there onwards, at least it was good that I had a foot in the door, and that I was able to kind of pitch myself for different jobs, etc.
I want to do a little bit of myth busting, but it's not also myth busting because there is a very physical aspect to cinematography.
Yeah.
And usually what happens is that the moment you think about cinematography, there aren't many girls, who are cinematographers. Of course, there is, we know a lot of girls, but the number is really less. But the first thing that comes into your mind when you think about a cinematographer, apart from visual language, is the labor. That it's a labor-intensive job, and there's lifting and physical. It's physically very, very taxing. Give us a window into what that looks like in terms of realistically, how laborious is it, and is it right to assume that there is a very, very deep connection between the physicality of this job and gender?
I think that the first, something you said earlier, that there are not a lot of female cinematographers. I'm pretty sure there are a lot of girls who are interested in cinematography and kind of want to do it, but the sad bit is that there is less opportunity given to these girls to be able to practice their skill and be a part of bigger, interesting projects where they're given enough, kind of support to be able to do a good job that is put on the same spectrum as all the other films that are shot by boys, There is no doubt that it is a physically exhausting job as much as it is mentally, because you're also like the director's therapist, at the same time you are doing a laborer's job, So I think it's important to be able to take care of your mind and body no matter what creative job that you're doing, because you are working for 12-15 hours, and unlike advertising that just lasts for about 2-3 weeks, this is something that can last for about 3 months, 2 months, sometimes you do a 6-day week and you hardly get any sleep, etc., etc. So it is not necessarily very exciting how the Indian film industry doesn't really have enough money to give us a 5-day week, so your brain is entirely rested for Monday again. So it's important to be able to, keep your body fit so you can have enough core and back strength to lift a 30-kilo camera, so you're not thinking about weight and you're actually being able to focus on the image, you know. But at the same time, there are a lot of tools nowadays and different kinds of equipment that you can utilize that reduces the weight on your shoulder, you know. I mean, whether it's this new Sony Venice Rialto and it's very light, you know. So I think you can support yourself and be smart about how you want to do handheld, what kind of grip you require to be able to not make it very strenuous. But at the same time, it's like the weapon of your choice. So you have to pick and choose what kind of artist you are, or how you want to make images, whether you want this film to be handheld or not, whether you would like to be able to do this in a more stable tripod, dolly, jib kind of way, where you're not necessarily using a lot of weight on your body, but at the same time, you are on your feet for 12 hours, 10 hours. So that does exhaust you no matter what, you know. So you have to take care of yourself.
Thank you for that.
Whether you're a man or a woman, you know, it's either or. Like, I'm pretty sure all my male cinematographer friends are as exhausted as I am, you know, and some of them are skinnier than me.
And also we have a lot of petite female cinematographers that are doing this work. So it's very important to kind of also highlight how it can be done. Richa Chadda just very recently, you know, her producer, who's also female, sent a proposal to the Berlinale and got a grant to basically train gaffers, female gaffers and key grips to put them into the system, because you're actually, I do a chat show called Metri for Amazon Prime. And the first time Shreya and I met was because I'd invited Shreya to be part of it. And I remember that I went batty looking for a female cinematographer and a female editor in Kerala. Okay, and there were none. There was not a single, I mean, there's Fawzia Fatima and there's of course Beena Paul, but they're not actively working. They're older people who are actively not working on projects. I'm talking about projects that are being made. So that said,
they must be working but not getting paid for it.
Maybe.
You know what I mean?
It's obscure.
So we don't hear about them.
Yeah. So I actually got in touch with a lot of people in the industry and I said, okay, even if, like, you must be knowing someone. So there were like 30, 40, 50 people who turned around and said that there are no women cinematographers and editors right now working in one of the most you know, forward narrative sort of you know, positive film cultures that exist in India. So I'm just saying that when a person does decide to become a cinematographer and you know, starts to go through the motions, I know that you shot. Were you ever an assistant before you actually shot a film on your own?
I tried to be an AD for a moment, and then I ran away from that concept. But I was lucky, you know, that I was not, that I was from a privileged background, you know, so I never had a problem of not having food on the table, you know. So definitely I could pick and choose exactly what I wanted to do, and because I got an education from, I got a decent education and I was able to, initially aesthetically I was not necessarily gelling with a lot of the people that could have possibly gotten a job with it. So I didn't necessarily want to be there. I think I'm saying it in a very wrong way, but I don't know how much truth I can really talk about. But the point is that I think that I chose not to be an assistant. I chose to be teething on my own by doing shitty jobs, by doing as much as possible. So I know what my eye is, what I like, what I don't like, what I would like to focus on, instead of necessarily going and you know, assisting a cinematographer. And also because I didn't know anybody. I was not from FTII, where I was a part of a gang of a community of people in India who knew a lot of people from there and could get jobs. I studied in ECAR, and then I studied in Australia, and I was living in the middle of nowhere, and I was doing my own little small music videos, short films, etc., etc., you know. So I chose a different route, and everyone can have their own route, you know. I think you have to find your own way around it to know that eventually you want to tell stories, and who you say it with and how you say it is the whole massive part of this journey, you know, because eventually you have to be able to stay in this in the long run and not get burnt out. And it's all about the people. You have to find the tribe. You have to find people you can work with to tell stories that you relate to and you like and you enjoy, because you need to be able to, you know. So I think it's exciting to choose who you want to surround yourself with and who you want to learn from and what you want to expose yourself to and what kind of choices you make, you know, if you can afford to. That's really important. Sometimes you can't afford to do it because you need a job, you know. So which is why I do shitty advertising so I can take my mother for a holiday, you know.
Shitty advertising, I love that. Shitty advertising that pays the bills. So please, whatever pays the bills so that you can get on to the next thing.
And then you combine it with things that feed your soul.
Yeah.
So you have to be able to find the balance, you know.
For a person who wants to become a cinematographer, what would, I know your trajectory has been different, but then you've also seen trajectories of people who are maybe assisting you or are on set that you've noticed. What would be that trajectory for a person who wants to actually become a cinematographer? What is that route? What does that route look like?
I think a lot of this depends on personality based too, but I feel the basic necessities would be to know what's been done by the masters, you know, to understand what the craft is and how for the last 100 years, you know, several decades, it's been done and excelled in practice, and how they've been able to master it with incredible storytelling, visual storytelling, and what the craft is itself. You know, I think it's important to educate yourself in the history of cinematography and cinema before you can try to recreate it or do something different. You know, I think like, so they say, you know, so much has already been done, etc., and you can't really do anything new, but I feel that you need to know what has been done and what's been celebrated so beautifully to know what you connect to and how what your take is on it, you know. And that doesn't necessarily mean in films, it means in literature and music and photography and acting and all different forms of art form, in politics, in anything, you know. Like, I think we have to understand that what the world is, so you know how to represent it on celluloid. Like, otherwise you have to have that responsibility if you're telling stories of humans and of people and of humanity and love and heartbreak and revenge and blood, you know. I mean, so I have to kind of know it all, or at least know what your point of view is as far as these things in the world are concerned.
Shreya, what is the collaboration? I know that when one is directing, one of the biggest things, at least when I direct, for me, if everybody said that, okay, if I can only pick one department where you can choose who the person is that's going to be hired, for me it's the DOP. So everything is determined by the person who's shooting it. So that's the most important. I would veto everything else, but say that let me choose the DOP that I work with. So what does that relationship look like? What is the collaboration between a director and a DOP? And of course the director prevails, but what does the job look like apart from just, you know, when people say defining the visual language of a narrative? Break that down, please.
Of course, this script is your Bible, you know, and when a director kind of comes to you, it's really important to listen first and foremost, you know, because I think that a lot of first-time cinematographers, or when you're early in your career, you're trying very hard to prove yourself, and you know, I think it's important to know exactly what your director wants, because the director hopefully has written the script, he or she has written the script. Once you understand the point of view of what the captain of the ship requires, then you're able to build on it, you know. You cannot make this film entirely on your own because it's a very collaborative process, you know. But I think then once you clearly understand what your director wants and what the script requires, then you need to provide your director possibly all kinds of options and ideas, so and a space that you can jam together, you know, whether that is color, whether that is design, whether that is the kind of faces and characters and costume and very important locations and the time of day, the weather, the season, you know, and it's the mood, it's this, what the script smells like, tastes like. I think these are, you have to kind of, it's like a marriage, you know, between a cinematographer and a director, you know, but you have to be able to kind of know what your director wants, hopefully before even they know what they want, you know, you have to be able to provide different options, you have to kind of, you know, hopefully work really beautifully with the production designer and the costume department, because their job is what you see in your frame, you know. So I think that it really goes hand in hand, all these things, and half the battle is won when it's a phenomenal location and you're shooting at the right time of day and with the right crew, you know. Then it's also the people under in my department, you know, a gaffer, my focus puller, who I feel is so crucial. I can keep making images, but like if my focus is off, then we're in big trouble, you know, like. So a focus puller is like an artist themselves. These are not technicians. These are people you have to choose well, who you work with, who understand you. I think crewing up is very crucial. The kind of group of people that you surround yourself with for those 2, 3, 6 months is really important, because you.
Tell me about the
As
cinematographer's atelier.
a cinematographer usually would have a focus puller, maybe a chief assistant camera. You have a gaffer who's like a head of department for the lighting team. Then you have a key grip, you know, who makes sure that the camera is gripped onto everything and takes care of whether you fall on your face or not, you know, sometimes. And then you have a second AC. Then you have, you know, of course, later on you have a colorist who kind of color grades your image and kind of balances from a raw to a LUT, or however you want the colors of your film to look like. And I'm missing out on anything.
How much of liberty, or how much of you know, agency do you have in choosing all these people? Do you have your regulars that can be hired onto a job that they're hiring you for? How does that work? All these people are cardinal to what you do. So from deciding who the colorist on the film is going to be and who that entire camera team, do you have full agency to kind of hire this? Do you, when you're hired for something, do you actually go and say that, okay, fine, these are people who are going to come with me and I'm going to figure out whether they're free or not? Because, you know, everyone's working the grid and people might not be free. So how does that work?
I've been lucky that my production and my director has given me the liberty of choosing who I want to work with, whether it's in post-production or my immediate crew. And also it's really beautiful that these men or women I've been working with over the years, and we are like a family itself, and they understand what I require and they are good at what they do. So I've spent a lot of time looking and sifting through people in this industry to be able to find who I enjoy working with in feature films. Because it's a longer duration. As far as ads are concerned, they're like quicker jobs, you see, and it depends on who's available, etc., etc. So I'm open to working with different kinds of people and also figuring out the massive web of assistants, etc., and gaffers within the industry. So I can then test and to see who I would like to work with, who I can learn from, you know, because a lot of people I kind of work with, I also learn a lot from. You know, it's not that I'm their boss, it's a give and take. You know, there are times that I kind of leave it to my gaffer to say that, look, this is what I want, but tell me what sauce you want to use to be able to light this particular mood, you know. And then eventually, of course, it's my call and then we work together. But the idea is that one can't be entirely a bossy boss. You know, I think it's good to have a bit of a collaboration. Otherwise, it's a very boring process for everybody involved, you know.
Yeah, because nobody is using the head. There's only one voice that is. So when there is what kind of disagreements happen between a director and a camera and a cinematographer? Like, what does that disagreement look like when eventually it is the vision of the director and you're sitting and enhancing it? But I'm sure that it's not. I mean, I've heard of roaring, you know, fights that have led to many things that we shall not talk about. But you know, what does that entail? What does a fight look like?
I think that it's really important in life to be able to fight well. You know, when I mean fight well, I don't mean like killing each other, but being able to, after a fight, find an epic solution. and whether that's with your mother, sister, or your director, you know what I mean? I think it's okay. I think arguments and conversations and fights sometimes happen, and it's an exhausting process, and sometimes things get out of control, or like you say things in the heated moment, but I feel that it's really crucial to be able to choose your words well, when you are there in this moment and things get tough, it's important to be able to use your words well and try very hard to think before you speak, and do not necessarily kind of arrive at that argument without a solution. I feel that when you're in it, you can't just say what you don't like and then storm out of the room. You have to arrive there, if you don't like something, with an alternative of how one can fix it, or what the other aspect of it is. Otherwise there's no point. Then we're just going around and round and hating on one another. Then it just like makes the room and the situation not fun, because eventually you want to enjoy those days of working. And don't get me wrong, I have had sulky moments on set, but then eventually you find something else to be able to make you happy.
Shreya, when it is the director's vision, but directors heavily depend on DOPs, and I know that especially first-time directors want to get a DOP who really knows their job. How much of the DOP's job should the director do? And what is your idea of, I'm not talking about somebody who's plywood and kind of agrees to everything that you say, but what kind of a collaboration is a dream collaboration for you with a director?
I think a visual director is always extremely handy to have, when you're making a feature film or any kind of work, It's really inspiring for me to have someone who also has a very beautiful understanding of the image, I think it's very nice. I mean, that's quite fun. But the beauty of a feature film is that we have a lot of time in hand, and prep is really good, because then you can spend enough time with your director that you understand each other, and they understand like what is color, or what is contrast, or what is too dark. Sometimes it's good to show your director like certain amount of references to understand that what they think is too dark or too colorful, or what they don't like, so you understand what they want, since actually it's more my department. So I think it's also on me to be able to make sure that I know what my director's visual language is, so I can meet them there, and then it's the conversation's easier. But like then you get like incredibly visual directors like Ronnie Sen, who is a photographer himself, or someone like Vikram Motwani, who I would love to work with, or have it, who's an extremely visual director. Like every cinematographer who works with him, their work improves because of him, because he's so visual and understands lensing like no other director that I know,
And also such a technical director.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
He knows all the technical aspects of every department. Before I open the house up for questions, I want to ask you, how prepared are Indian movie sets for women? I mean, you worked on sets.
Yeah. I think when you mean sets, you mean the humans in the sets.
I also mean logistically the set.
Oh.
The loos, the
No,
safety.
Oh God, it's not good. Like I mean, I was in Ladakh. I had to go like it's tough. It's really difficult, and there are a lot of female producers too, and there are a lot of girls who are not necessarily camera department, but we've all gotten used to kind of relieving ourselves in strange situations, and I think that it's problematic and it's exhausting, and I think it's important to know that when you arrive on set that you ask for it, and you make sure that, because sometimes it doesn't even cross their mind that girls require something else, so I feel that please ask for whatever you want. It'll be totally foolish, and no one's that mean that they won't provide it, or at least attempt to provide it, or they will be able to help and assist. We are in a country of severe misogyny, there is that, and I don't think that's going to change anywhere in the near future. I think that it's really sad that women have to maybe spend too much time dealing with things which is not got anything to do with work, to be able to do their work, You have to be able to find non-triggered calmer way around these situations, so you can actually not get derailed and focus and waste your energy on people who don't necessarily respect you the way they should. I think it's really crucial to be able to find a way around it so you can communicate, and you have to be able to make sure that before you take up the job, if you have the luxury to, you work with people who are like-minded or who are open to conversations where you feel uncomfortable and you can tell them that you do, and then hopefully there's a way around it, Otherwise we won't get any jobs if they're like
Shreya's like, where do I begin and where do I stop? But this is endless.
It's endless, and it's very rare that when you're coming face to face with a misogynist that you get a chance to leave the room.
Yeah.
You don't, you have to deal with it. How you deal with it is the issue. And that's the grace in us, Yes.
Okay guys, questions?
Good afternoon, ma'am. Ma'am, what is the process, or how do you select the right lens or right camera or the right FPS while starting a certain project or a film? And how do you select it, or what is the process?
Usually that changes, of course the script, but like as far as the frame, like FPS and the lensing is concerned, it's helpful when you get on set and you see the location and the time of day and what the mood is, whether you want to shoot at high speed or not, what the script requires. But I think that when you arrive on set and you do a camera blocking with the actors, the director, and you do a kind of a actor blocking, and the director kind of shows you how the actors move from point A to B and what the space is, then you pick your lensing, And I think that FPS has a lot to do. It's usually like if you have dialogue scenes that you can't necessarily shoot high speed now. But lensing, you should try to get an opportunity of shooting a wide lens and then you kind of do a nice close-up. But a lot of that also depends on the character's face. Sometimes some actors look different and a bone structure looks different on an 85 mm compared to a 16 mm or a 14 or 25 mm but up close. So what your choice is and what the bone structure of the character in front of you is and how you would want them to look, I think it's really beautiful that if you do, before you start a film, that you can do a camera test where you have the makeup artist and costume and color and the actor, and then you can test different lenses and different magnifications on your actor, So you understand what works, and then with that you work with the director to see if they like it or not, and so I think it's you need to know your kit really well. You need to know what any lens can do and what you have and what are these tools and how to best use these tools according to what story you're telling.
Good afternoon, ma'am. Aryan this side.
Please call me Shreya, guys.
Okay. First of all, thank you to Smriti ma'am for asking the questions which were on my very mind. So, thank you for
She's
that.
the best.
And my question to you is, do you prefer storyboards or a normal short division list works for you?
I think that one should not necessarily use a storyboard as like, the last thing, as a Bible. Short list is very crucial. It's nice for the director to make their short list and then for the cinematographer to make their own short list, and then you marry both of them. And then your most important person on set, who's also the first day's AD, is also on tune, so you understand the scheduling, you understand how much time it takes. And as far as the storyboard is concerned, it's sometimes helpful for advertising, it's sometimes helpful for filmmakers like the Coen brothers who really kind of follow it through and are actually such legends at visual storytelling and So I think it really depends. You don't have to follow either of it, but it's good to have this information so you know how to plan your day and what is required for you when you get to work.
Thank you so much.
Hello ma'am, my name is Kritika. Ma'am, I have one question. So while during the shoot time, what kind of creative differences arises between it can arise between a director and a cinematographer, and how do you tackle those issues?
I mean, the thing is that what is your question then?
How to resolve
Jhagda kaise karte ho?
Creative differences might arise, and how do you tackle those issues?
I think preparation is very important, guys. You have to know that you have to spend time with the people you're going to make a movie with. You need to get to know each other and what the triggers are. You need to be able to communicate so beautifully that they know what you don't like also, or what are your boundaries. You need to understand that eventually it's a movie. It's not the end of the world. When we are starting off, it feels like the end of the world. You know what I mean? You take it so personally. I would hate it when people say, don't take it personally. I said, it is personal. You know what I mean? This is personal. You know, but the thing is, you need to be able to try to be calm and happy, and I think that I meditate a lot, so I don't lose my mind. I think it's important to not scream and shout, because the person who screams on set has already lost the battle. I think it's important to try to listen to each other, to know how to respond to someone who's angry, to take them away from it and not fight in front of other people, because you reduce the morale. I think it's very difficult. It's easier said than done. It's all right if you screw up once in a while, but make sure you apologize. There is no need for ego. There's no space, and there's a lot of it. Don't get me wrong on these sets, but just try to be shanti as much as possible.
So, first of all, I'm a big fan ever since I watched her on Netflix. Wish I had the opportunity to watch it on a bigger screen. So, can you? So I could already relate when you said you had a background in photojournalism, right? I could see in your frames the way you portray everything. So it is an action western. So, can you tell me in terms of framing and telling the story, what was your inspiration? Do you prefer paintings or older movies or stuff like that? Or do you just go in there, soak it all in and try to portray it as however you want? What is your process in terms of that?
You're absolutely
Fantastic question.
Yeah, it's such a lovely question. Thank you so much for watching my movie. I think that, like we were discussing earlier, it's really important to be able to, I love watching. Actually, honestly, before I did Thar, I've slept through a lot of westerns myself while watching it. But, I rewatched a lot of it, and I watched what the masters did. I understood what that kind of terrain, how it affects humans who are living in these insane, incredible, rough terrains. I looked at a lot of paintings. I think it's important that depending on the genre, you look at what has been done before.
Hopefully get resolved, during that time, that you figure what the language will look like and what it will be like.
The location is so important, because once you're looking at the locations, the story is set there. So a lot of, when we are figuring out the color palette, other than the mood, sometimes I see the color which already exists. Like in Thar, I was looking for the tones that already were there. There was like a onion pink flower on the ground, there was the rust and the brown. But it was also crucial for me it was a conscious decision not to show sand dunes, gota, not to show bandhani. So how do you not to have laltins? But there were different, different forms of fire, different forms of things that I was using to be able to also create a mood and an atmosphere where the story was set in, which was not necessarily a cliche of the state. It was a new Western film. So it was a different kind of a take on something which has been done like Sholay, which is a legendary film, but so you have to try to find your own point of view at the same time while you are referring to the masters and what's been done before.
I love what you, like everybody else here, I love what you did in Thar, and it was a different way of looking at that particular landscape, and I think DOPs do so much to kind of show you a side of a city or a space, like Danny Boyle's Slumdog Millionaire. The way Bombay is shot in there is just
So
absolutely
I've never seen Bombay shot like that.
Shot like that. Also another one underrated, like how you see Bombay and using those flyovers. I won't go to Gully Boy because Gully Boy is very recent, but I think Roman Sippy did a great job with Bluff Master, because the way he used the city and the kind of things that he used in the city, and because Bombay is also so short and kind of overexposed. And I think Ranabir Das, if you guys are watching that tonight, oh my god, that's going to be so much fun. All We Imagine Is Light. I hope you guys are watching that, and then your another homegirl, Rima Das's film, which is going on right now, which we have happily skipped. Yeah. So she shoots her own material.
Yeah, it's absolutely incredible.
Yeah, it's stunning. Any other questions? Oh God. We're taking last two questions, yours and yours.
Then I'm hungry.
Sorry. In terms of working with your team, you said you've never assisted anyone before, like you started your own journey. And in terms of working with your assistants, like how is the process? Like what is the level of collaboration you have with them? Like is it only regarding the setups and stuff like that, or you work more on a personal level, like on a philosophical level? Do you share your views and stuff like that?
You have to. I think it's really nice to be able to surround yourself with your own core team of people you're inspired by too, who you enjoy spending time with, who you can jam with, who you okay with just thinking out loud to, and then actually respecting their opinion. You know, like I think it's important to be, and no matter what, that's how growing up is. I think find the right kind of people who are okay with, who you enjoy, whose point of view you enjoy. You know, and sometimes who are okay with telling you that your shit stinks. Do not surround yourself with yes ma'am, yes sir people, because that's bloody boring and you get into trouble. You can't be, and then your work stagnates. You have to be able to also don't also work with the same people forever. I mean, you can if you want to, but that becomes too comfortable. Try different people, get uncomfortable, put yourself into really difficult situations that you can get yourself out of, by yourself. So you have to challenge yourself all the time.
I want to give you guys an example. This is a very important point that Shreya said, because a lot of people work with the same team all the time because there's a comfort level. But with new age creators like her and many other people who come in, Siddharth Malhotra, who has done Maharaj and Hichki and a couple of other films, he was hell-bent when he was making Hichki, which was going to be his comeback and kind of like a really loaded project because he really wanted to kind of establish himself as a director. Was hell-bent on working with people, who work in a commercial space and Yash Raj and all of that. And then I remember telling him that, listen, I've just gotten to know people from the independent industry and I would really like him to work with Avinash Arun, and he very reluctantly, he was like, oh my God, independent film, director, cinematographer, and somehow he met Avinash with great reluctance, and they got along and they did a couple of meetings, and then he's the one who landed up shooting Hichki, which was such a project, such a dream project for Siddharth. In that visual language, if you see Hichki again, you'll see how different that is from anything that has come out of the Yash Raj stage.
And also anything Avinash is shot.
Yeah.
Anything Avinash from what his style is like.
So this is so fabulous, such a fabulous DOP. You had a question, the last one, and then after that you feed the DOP because you don't want to hang out.
Hello ma'am, it's really nice to meet you. I'm Sanchari and I'm an aspiring filmmaker and aspiring writer, director. So I would just like to ask you, as a beginner and wanting to pursue a career in directing and writing, how much of work, as already Smriti ma'am has already pointed out, how much of the work and knowledge I should acquire so that it helps me and also my DOP and it makes the project come to life and makes it fruitful. How much should I know and how much research should I do?
You mean how much
As
as a director you should know about cinematography? I think, and you are not in film school.
I think right now I'm doing masters in mass communication and journalism.
Okay. I think that, right now focus on whatever you want to say. Like, just don't have to learn my department as yet. Don't worry about that because a cinematographer is there to be able to assist you in whatever you want, So right now focus on exactly what you want to do for yourself, and, it's very difficult, director-writer's job, We are still there to serve you guys. So please focus on your writing and your skills as a director, and I think the script is most crucial. We are all feeding off that, and writing is an extremely difficult job because I watch my sister do it and it's like, I don't know if I can do it, So please focus on exactly what you want to do, and it's important to do that, and then the rest will aram se happen once you have a good script in hand.
And I'm going to send you a couple of links of, Konkana.
Yeah.
Konkana is an actor, and when she started directing, she had all these, really, she had a lot of issues thinking that, lens nahi pata, ye nahi pata, kaise hoga. So even somebody like her who's thinking that chalega. Also, the thing is, as you, get on in years, get more experience, it'll happen. You get your story right first, and then, think about direction, and then you learn. You'll start to, it'll become organic, and you should seek it out, but don't get burdened by it. Like Shreya said, like, don't let it burden you, ki lens nahi pata. There is a proper person who's going to handle that department for you, and then you will get to learn on the job. You just need to get the best DOP possible for your film.
And what's important is that if you don't know something, no, please ask. And just say, please show me. And then decide. She's like, oh, do you want 50 mm? Do you want 75 mm? I said, show me 50, not me, the director. Okay, I will now show me 75. Then you choose what you like better. Don't have to know don't have to imagine what another lens is. So please feel free. This is not woe, though it feels like it is. You know what I mean? I think it's important to be able to say it out loud when you don't know something, Okay, thanks.
Great. Thank you so much. So one last, I'm getting a little greedy. One last question. See, as filmmaking students, I'm sure they would resonate when we go to watch movies, and there are a few scenes which laymen might find, oh, it's okay, but as a cinematographer, as a filmmaking, it's a wow moment for us. Oh wow. Which is one? It's a hard question. Which is that one wow moment for you, or wow scene for you, which you say, wow, like awesome.
In cinema.
Visually, in cinema, as a cinematographer, not your work, not of course, but then anyone else's, and like it's blown you over.
I think, because there's so many, but I would say that something that I always keep going back to is Wong Kar-wai, Like, I keep thinking about Fallen Angels, the 12 mm crazy, beautiful shots of the woman in bed, or In the Mood for Love, when the first time they meet, oh my god, it's so beautiful, it's like so romantic, simple dolly shots, with like beautiful costume and very dim light, and like in the middle of the night. I mean, I think he's a master, and that is like, the both of them, the cinematographer, director, it's a beautiful marriage, So I think we should revisit a lot of Wong Kar-wai films, Chunking Express, when she's like dancing behind the bar, like, and she's like, waiting, and she's cleaning the restaurant. I mean, there are just phenomenal poetic moments there. I mean, there's no doubt.
So awesome references for all of you. Great. Thank you so much, Shreya. It was a wonderful session.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. I will call Beyond to meet our communications director to come over and give some Assamese gifts.
I mean, you could.
And I also call everyone for pictures right